Hello, lovely people. Let's see if everything's working. It is Thursday, 4 o'clock East Coast time. We're going to be drawing some magic items that are meant to be for the thing over there. I rearranged everything here, so it's a little weird, but I'm pointing the right way. I got so used to pointing over there, but there's nothing over there now. Everything's over here now. So, yeah. So the Kickstarter is going great. Way better than I would have thought, given that it's December and everyone already spent all their money over Black Friday. None of my chat messages are appearing. Why are they not appearing? Hey! Hello! It's up there with my Skull the Troll plush from PvP and some bloop stuff. And Eric, how are you? Did I miss Tuesday, or was it? There was a very brief stream that started late and ended early on Tuesday. I was late because I was running stuff to the post office, and now that's kind of crazy. We keep getting lots of orders, which is wonderful, but the bad news was that, and I know you're going to say, why didn't I stream from the line at the post office? But it was just crazy. I'm going to quit mail so it stops beeping. But we got some stuff to do. We're going to illustrate some magic items. And there's a few magic items for the Prayer's Handbook for the Metadomain Cleric, and we're going to create those here. I've got the rules for them. I just really need the artwork and have to figure out what they look like. Twitch was cracking down on pseudo-topless streamers, so I assumed... I'm bottomless the whole time. So, no, I'm always very, very conservative above the waist. All right. Oh, heavens. But I am gloveless, so I have to... David, how are you? I hope you're enjoying your time off for good behavior. David, as you all know, streams here, and he's fantastic. We have quorum now. We can actually make some decisions. We got Matthew here over on YouTube. We got David here over on the Twitch. Matthew does the webcomic Swords, which is a delight, and David does the everything with a mice. You're tired? You had a day off, didn't you? Wait, or was yesterday a day? It's all a blur for me right now. I think quorum is just the minimum number of people to vote. So if it's a deliberative body or allegedly deliberative body like the Supreme Court, you would need 5 judges. Racing through home repairs. Gotcha. But the Kickstarter is going great. We launched a week ago today. So it's been going on for 7 days. It's got 3 weeks to go. And 234 backers. I keep seeing folks come in. It's really surprising. Usually after a few days, I've been the most chill at this campaign than anyone I've had so far. It launched, did great. I was at peace with it. And people keep coming in. It hasn't been a thing where I'm constantly refreshing. That's the symbol for refreshing or lighting of a lighter. No, I haven't been checking kick track and all that other stuff. It's just I think it's gonna do fine. I have asked we have a stretch goal at $10,000, which is creating the Grognard miniature, which I have printed at home here with some effort to get the pieces just right. You can see a little bit of scarring in some places where the supports were plucked off. This came out surprisingly well. Now there's the company, the filament I'm using for this, Sunlu is the brand. It's inexpensive compared to the others, but the quality is excellent. But we're going to get quotes for this to be cast. And I have no idea what it will cost for people because it's much larger. It's like twice the size of a typical mini. So this would be your Intoximancer, and this would be your Grognard. So a 1-inch base versus a 2-inch base. Technically, in D&D terms, a large creature. But we're going to get... I asked them for a quote to get these produced. And that is our $10,000 stretch goal. So if we get there, assuming we get there, this will be an add-on that people can get, and once I know how much it costs me, I will pass those costs on to the consumer. The main cost with all these minis and getting these sculpts made are actually professionally cast, and the quality difference is off the charts. I love what the 3D printer I have can do. Resin printers can do even better. But they're high end. They're like, it's a Formlabs machine, the kind of thing that, you know, produces you know, crowns for teeth, like high end 3D printing, like crazy high quality micron level printing. That's an exaggeration, but certainly much better than, you know, extruded plastic. And then they cast them, so those are at that point are injection molded, and they come out beautifully. Those little kits, and I'm excited to see what they can do with the grognard, because all the little details will be there. I shall show you that sculpt here, I think. But this is something else we're going to work on a little bit. This is a sculpt of a book with a hinge that will be, I think, the stretch goal after the grognard. There'll be a couple little stretch goals, like another sticker, I think a grognard sticker. Then there will be, I think this one might be at the 15K mark. And I still have to figure out if I can physically make these for people, or if this is an STL that I make for people to make. There was a campaign I saw that someone had sculpted drinking vessels. And I looked in that immediately, right? One of the very first things I ever sculpted was Melvwyn's flagon. And during Intoximancy, you think STL? Certainly would save me a lot of trouble. So they were making these. The very first thing I sculpted was Melvwyn's flagon. Now, it's very crude compared to what I can do nowadays. Do not try and fulfill these yourself with your 1-3. My presumption is that there wouldn't be many orders. David, that would be the thing. Or if I do make them, maybe I'll bring them to conventions. I have got a convention in January in Central Florida, so I get to drive to it. There's a few conventions I've got in the spring of next year, in the early months of next year, which I get to drive to. So I might bring some stuff with me there. Say there are 5. That's too many. Don't make that assumption. Yes, make some and sell at cons. David is wise. And handsome. Symmetrical, I would say. David is wise. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Fine. But I can't. Well, the whole thing is, I have to make one that works for me. I have to print one out and see if I can actually get this thing to work. Have I put the magnets in the right location? Because under the cover of the book, I don't know if I can show in this version. I don't think I can. But the idea is that the cover is hinged. I built a basic prototype of just the hinge mechanism. I know the lights here are bright, and this plastic is very, very pale. It makes me seem swarthy. But the hinge worked, and that was the main thing. Could I actually sculpt a hinge that functioned? And it does. So, and this is actually probably the height of the book that it would need to be to contain the zines. The point is that the hollow of the book is where you could store your zines. In the do-it-yourself category, that was a pretty big success I had in the last week. Marcos, if you're here, thank you for the suggestion. I sculpted... Let me see if I can pull this up. We'll jump over there. It's already launched. I know the text at the bottom needs to update. Do I not have it? I've got it over on the Discord. I can show an example that Mike, Patreon supporter, Kickstarter backer, lovely all-around gentleman, and a collaborator on the Art of Richard Thompson book. I can show you what he put one together. I uploaded the diagram, a PDF, with a printable box for the cards. So you just print it on foam core and cut it, fold it the right way, and it will hold your deck of cards for the death dealing deck. This saved me. Well, it was a thing. Quite a few people asked me, how do I store my cards? There are clear plastic boxes you can get from Amazon, but you have to buy like 5 of them, which is really nice because you get to show off the artwork for the cards themselves. But people wanted boxes, and Marcos is in, I want to say South America or Central America. I don't know specifically. And so even that just shipping a flat box that people could assemble themselves, a pain in the ass. Shipping gets outrageous, and who knows if they want it. And, you know, for all I know, many of my supporters already have a Cricut machine or a Glowforge or something like that where they can cut these things out very easily. Also, kudos to Mike for painting that miniature of the Intoximancer. I think he did a wonderful job. But he made the boxes, printed them out, and it worked out really well. You can get them from your local game store. Yeah, that's great too. And they have one for like a 54 pack of cards. I'm assuming they were always going to be thicker Magic-sized decks, which are like 2 or 3 times in depth. All right, where were we? Spinning minis. But Mike made those pretty much overnight. I think the very next day he wrote back saying, I have made the deck of cards. And he did a wonderful job. So we're going to sketch some magic items today, ones that will go inside the Prayer's Handbook. I've got a couple I want to do. The very first one is going to be the tinfoil helm, which should be pretty awesome, I think. But I do have to be right back. Take a look at this wonderful gallery of art for a moment. I left my drawing glove in the living room. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. I am back. I missed you so much. Also, I want to give some other 3D printing updates. I am printing my own table displays for comic conventions. This is this is not a full-size prototype. It's got some fixes I need to make. It weighs less than some of the ones we have at the table. I did some last-minute scaling of it, and it didn't account for that with the slot. So I'm still working on these, but I do think these are going to be a nice lightweight way to get some... have some displays at my table that look quite nice. I have a textured plate that when the printer makes these, it puts a nice bit of almost like a shine on them, kind of a pearlescent shine. And I showed this on Tuesday. This was a half-size version of the house. It had some failures. Let me get a full screen here. I apologize. I need a haircut. The 3D software, the slicing software, will put supports in here, and it would cocoon the whole thing in supports. Too many supports. To the point where I'd be like chiseling the model out from under the supports. They do put like very thin separations between the support and the actual model, so they should be, in theory, easy to separate. But, you know, if the plastic settles at all, they basically fuse together. So you can see the places where I needed more supports, like on that awning, the corner there. But the back turned out great. The windows, I think, turned out excellent. But every place where there was a weak spot in it, I added a little bit more support and did a second print. This is also super low resolution. Like, it's a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, and I printed these with 0.2 millimeter layer lines. Basically as big fat Sharpie quality. Wait, I'm sorry, it's a 0.4 nozzle, and it was a 0.2 layer line. But still fairly chunky. Now you can see where I missed some other places too. Far fewer problems, but they were still, like, you can just see this is areas where I tried to put plastic down, and the plastic had nothing to land on, so it just kind of floated away. So as I peeled away the supports that were here, the very few supports, there was a problem. Less problems in those rafters at the top. A few of them still need supports up there, otherwise they will get all stringy. The sign in the front of the building fell apart. I think there's certain elements of this that I'm going to cut off and print separately and peg and have them set up in a way so that they can be slid into position. And this is a lighter gray plastic. This is one of Bamboo Lab's own plastics. The only reason why... so the tree supports they have are these kind of windy... They look like trees. they're attached. They're flat on the platform, the print bed, and they wind their way up and attach, fixed to a point. So basically, since things can't float in the air, stupid gravity, you need a support of some kind to hold things up. So this tree winds around and goes here. I confused my stupid windy chimney with a support and pulled it off. So that's on me. I don't blame the printer for that. But there's some lovely stuff that's done so far. The Intoximancer prints better than most of the other ones I've had. It's super clean. The one slight issue is the bottom of the cape. That's about it. I think because it's such a small a space that there's no room for it to put a support, and it kind of just tries and gives up. But everything else seems to be great. And this isn't the fine setting. I have a 0.2 nozzle that I can swap in for the 0.4 that it comes with, and then we can even make these layer lines even thinner. It'll increase the print time, but remarkable. That gap between the strap that's holding the book up, that's holding the book on his waist, that should have been... This has taught me how to sculpt. Printing these things has been like, oh, I should have had that just fused to his body. Why on earth did I make it a separate thing that sort of floats? I didn't like that because that's cooler as an illustration, but it's dumber as a model. And so I'm learning to hopefully be a little smarter. And then this was a sculpt for the cover of the book, which will be a magic item in the inside there. And so I think I want to have a full-size one of these behind me up on the wall back there. So that's in the works too. But I'm actually printing a Christmas present for somebody. So we'll worry about that later. Ooh, what if those stands had distressed edges like they were made of chiseled and worn stone? What if those stands... Oh, you mean like the platforms that they sit on, those little discs that the figure's on? David? Or these were actually made your book display stands. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if I can once I get the geometry down, I would like to make them look like castle walls. I have some ideas for that, where if I find it, this is that hard, darker plastic, which is fine. It actually feels like it's a lot stronger than others. And if you cracked one of these open, you would see a lattice work, because one of the things that the printer does to save save plastic, is it basically has a lot of air inside here. And what it does is it has a lattice of filament. So I do think that's going to provide some stability. But I like the idea of making the table displays kind of look like dungeon tiles. Like, as if I was going to laying out the table of, let's play D&D, and all the displays kind of would look like that. If I can find LED torches, little things like that, really tiny things, because that way, or maybe 3 times the size. Much like these figures, if they're 3 up, they're better, they're easier to print on my clunky... I say clunky. It's just a freaking state of the art. It's more machine than man. It's better than I deserve, and but it's not resin. You know, resin is like Star Trek replicators. Yeah, get the measurements right first, then play. Right, and so I do one of these at half size. I'm going to keep doing these at half size, and I think the plan is to clean this up as best I can. I'm going to get rid of those strands, and then bring this to a convention, and if anybody wants it for $10, $20, they can have it. It probably cost me $5 and maybe $5 in filament, and 8 hours of the machine chunking away. Another really amazing thing that happened. I feel like I've landed, like, I don't know, everything's coming up Millhouse right now, because just this week they had a new firmware update for the printer, and it silenced it. It was a very loud machine, to the point where when it was printing, I didn't want to be in the room with it. Especially if I set it to its highest speed, its quickest speed. And they sent out a firmware update where all the things that it does to balance the print bed, all the things it does to, if there's an unevenness, or as the things are moving, it's compensating for its own movement. Now it's also compensating for the volume it creates, the sound it would create, and it runs a fraction of the same volume. It doesn't do anything for the fan speed. The reason why I don't have it printing right now is the fan is louder than my home's air conditioning. So, anywho, meanwhile, back in the world of drawing, that's the 3D printing update. I'm having a blast. More machines than man. Right, oh Dave, getting the measurements right first. Yeah, as soon as I can get that right, and other things like I'm still... humidity is bad for filament, and I'm in Florida, so I have a dehumidifier. There's dehumidifier, the material storage system for the filament has dehumidifying time to move. I'm gonna go wherever I can print filament best. That's my choice. So I'm going to the desert. But the filament container at the top of this printer has 2 internal trays for desiccant, and it's got room for 4 spools inside it. It's the same one that Adam Savage has. It's got rooms for 4 spools of filament at the top, and taking one of those spools out, I just put a little dehumidifier, portable dehumidifier device inside there, so the thing is very dry, but for all I know, it's affecting it in some way. Can't remember. All right, let's do some drawing. So the thing I want to draw first is the tinfoil helm. The metadomain cleric, which I'm having a lot of fun now. I shared on social media a picture of one of the clerics. This guy, with something like his name is Vuitton, whatever it was, and that he's a metadomain cleric who believes his player, who thinks his player is a guy named Gary, who sells aluminum what he calls aluminum siding in the sacred land of Schenectady or Tampa. I think I changed that depending on the social media platform. But I like the idea of having a few more moments where I'm showing a metadomain cleric and kind of talking about their perspective. I think that'll help get the idea across of just how weird this is and how much fun I think it'll be. Houses in Flint are cheap. I hear that, but also cold. And I'm frail. This is a basic setup I do for every one of my documents. I set a layer of filled with white and lower the opacity. And then fill a layer with blue and make that set that to color. So no matter what, let's say I've got a red thing I'm sketching with. When I draw that below those layers, it turns blue. So I can sketch in blue underneath all that stuff. It just kind of makes it easy for me to play around with things. And that way, if let's say I'm working on an illustration and I like how this looks, it's okay, but no, not good enough. I can lower it below those layers and lighten it up and use it as reference. So having these 2 layers here is really helpful. The idea with a tinfoil helm, let's draw on the layer above the white. The idea with the tinfoil helm was it would be real easy to kind of have that aluminum Christmas tree looking thing that a lot of people have when they've got a tinfoil hat, classic. But I was thinking that it would be a more of a classic helm that a soldier or a knight might wear, and that it has this kind of 4-way webbing at the top, and then this part is all crinkly aluminum. So it's there, but it's still a helm that that somebody could wear. And the idea would be, it would give you, you couldn't have you can't read a person, if they're wearing it, you can't read their mind, you can't detect their thoughts. Telepathy doesn't work in or out. They have resistance against psychic damage, and they have advantage on saving throws related to maintaining concentration. In D&D 5th edition, Tales of the Valiant, let's cover them all now. If you're concentrating on a spell, and that's usually a kind of a really heavy delimiter on spellcasters. Some spells are so powerful and they're ongoing that they have to concentrate on them. A popular culture reference for that would be Snape during the Quidditch match muttering to himself to maintain the effect that he's trying to maintain, or to disassemble the effect he's trying to disassemble, and that someone interrupts him with setting his foot on fire. I hate to make a reference to that stuff nowadays, but I can't think of another example. You have to maintain concentration, and so if someone hits you and you're concentrating on a spell, you roll a Constitution saving throw to see if you can maintain your concentration. And this helm would help with that. It seemed like it's fun. Vinyl clothing for Jan Holmes. What about a newspaper-shaped hat mixed with Robin Hood shape but made of... Oh, that's nice. Only worry they'd be harder to make a helm look thin like foil. Well, I was thinking that... let me move this example of the effect I'm going for here. That... I totally get that. I think that's a great idea and something I would probably do in my comic, but I think in terms of D&D, I don't think a player would want to wear it because it would look silly. I feel like if this is a helmet... And these are like metal pieces that would fasten in some way. I don't even know about that part. And then this part would just be flat planes of crinkled... I don't even know how tinfoil would even... I don't know when tinfoil was invented, how it affects anything in the D&D world. But the idea that this section here would hopefully look like aluminum foil. And the rest of the helmet would be metal. Maybe has some sort of decoration on it. Kind of an upscale tinfoil hat. Maybe there's a gap here under the helmet. Not sure about the spike. If D&D players are suddenly worried about looking silly, we've got a big... Well, it really is interesting. I do feel like a lot of D&D is... I bet the majority of players, maybe even the vast majority, it is wish fulfillment, superhero stuff. They want to be cool. And it's one of the reasons why the characters on the covers of the books, I try to make them look badass. To some degree. Aspirational in some degree. In some way. They wouldn't want to wear it because it would look silly. I'm playing a game at the moment where it's literally a secret helm that is just a crate. I totally respect that. And I do think there's a lot of people who would. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people would wear something that was... I mean, I have the beard of holding, for goodness sakes. But I just didn't want it to be... I mean, I can also open it up for the rules that you know, one line that says it takes many forms. But I just felt like... Well, let's take David's idea of like a paper boat. with the folds of the aluminium. Maybe it's got odd pinches in corners because it's barely held together. Matthew goes, having a hard time trying to find a TV trope for wizard must concentrate, oddly enough. Huh, that's interesting. That is really interesting. I'm not sure when D&D introduced the idea of concentrating on a spell, but I think it's a really good one because it's like whenever I create a spell in the books that is too powerful or a little too powerful, I make sure it's concentration. Or if it lasts longer than... There's even one that only lasts one round, but I make it concentration because I don't want it to be coupled with something else. Like haste. Haste and slow, those things are concentration. Bless is concentration if you're thinking about clerics. Things which summon creatures like an elemental, that's concentration. Those things that basically change the battlefield in such a strong way that making it concentration so a wizard can't do it twice is a big deal. And then there are some things, a lot of games have introduced the idea of a character concentrating on more than one thing at a time. And I thought about including that in the metadomain subclass. Like a very high level function of the metadomain character might be at level 17 that they can concentrate on 2 spells at once. That feels meta. A lot of the functions so far, a lot of the abilities I've added, I try to make all of them thematic. I can tell people what I'm working on with the domain class if folks are interested in that sort of thing. Concentration is screwed over players that like to play support-focused characters. Absolutely. Absolutely. Warduke is the perfect mix of badass with wish fulfillment and very silly. I totally agree, David. Totally agree. Skulls everywhere, half blue scale mail, half barbarian with a fur loincloth. There's a wonderful action figure that NECA makes for Warduke. I'm just not into action figures. If it was a sculpture, it would be behind me already. And there's a company making a full-size Warduke helm, and the helmet's blue, just like the action figure and just like the cartoon series. I feel like they shouldn't make it blue. I feel like the plasticky look of the figure and the silly color scheme of the cartoon series pushes against the cool drawing that Tim Truman had done. I feel like you should make it look like metal. Make it look like dark blue metal, but don't make it this bright blue Crayola 8-pack blue. Reference Jippy Pop for the dome. Make it a little bulbous on top. I like that. I think that's what this part has to look like, David. I think that's the part where this part's on their head, and then this is kind of the roll cage that sits over the whole helmet. And then it can have additional protuberances, like you're saying, that maybe it hints at like pop, pop, pop. Has a handle coming off the back, and this whole thing's just a skillet. Back in the day, we used fire to heat our food. I don't want to be too old-timey about things. Like the pacifist prestige class in 3.5 isn't usable. I don't know that one. Concentration has screwed over players that like to play support. Like the pacifist prestige class. I don't know anything about 3.5. That was during my that's when I was frozen in ice. Excellent, David. Excellent. But I think we'll try to sculpt this idiotic thing. And I mean that in the best way. No handle. Maybe a handle? No handle. Come on, it's gonna be cool. It's already just called tinfoil helm. Because I think up until right before launch, I just said the magic guy in the tinfoil hat. I'm like, no, let's make it a helm. This is fantasy. This is all right. Let's try to sculpt that. We can do that. We put the spinning minis up for a minute. What I do is I screen capture my screen, hence the name. Then I crop it, and this is horribly boring, and I'm jumping around applications, and it brightens the screen up, and it's all pointless. I go into Nomad Sculpt, open a new document, and then in the background I set up a reference image of the Jiffy Pop hat. And we're back. Concentration bound magic. It was under a picture of Professor X. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. That it has to exist. The whole idea that you know, somebody is somewhere in the world and they're the one. Because a lot of speaking of the X-Men, remember the Hellfire Club, the one who I think was related to Charles in some way, who could project illusions and really mess with people's minds. I can't think of his name. But I think that was something he had to concentrate on, and you couldn't find him because you're trapped in the artificial illusion world that he had created, and somehow you have to find him and snap him out of it to snap you out of it. Those X-Men comics were great, I think. I remember them being great. So this is the sphere that they start you with. I don't think it's very spherical. In theory, I'm not going to print this. Legion, maybe? Maybe. But, what's his name? Wyndham? Ah. Brain is mush. But talking about the earlier about those mugs and Melvwin's mug, then I want to sculpt a really excellent Melvwin's mug, which you see in the comic strip. It's got a Toxamancer's flagon, excellent metal color, handle, has a dragon that's sort of wrapped around it, and this is before I ever made the subclass and about having a sentient flagon. But this was the inspiration for the sentient flagon, was the idea that there's this little, it's got a dragon sort of wrapped around it. And the dragon was reacting to everything that Melvin was saying. I think Jim Davis has something in U.S. Acres. There's a character who's like a floaty, an inflatable thing around him, and then the face on the inflatable mirrors the face of the character on it. The mug was basically imitating or had the back of Melvin. Everything Melvin was saying, the dragon was making the same expression, like, yeah, Melvin's right. So I sculpted that to put on the figure, the very, very tiny sculpt. Do I have a large one here? I do have a large one here. Hold on a second. And this was resin printed and then painted silver. But that little mug there, if I can hold the camera, if it will ever get in focus, I'll be your best friend. If you get in focus, there we go. I can sculpt that and leave a cavity. And what they did in theirs, and I've seen it in others as well, is they leave a cavity for a soda can. And so it's a kind of a beer koozie. Or in my case, Diet Coke koozie. Alright, so we have our own sphere. Oh, this will be easy. So we'll clone it. And we've had to do this before. To hollow the sphere out, we duplicate the sphere and then scale it down a little bit. Maybe a lot. This is just for an illustration again, so we can be a little bit flexible with it. Trying to think, do I want to do it this way? I think I do. I think I do. Let's try this. We use the trim tool. Let's select the sphere in front of us, the outer sphere. We're going to try to cut it around the midpoint. Take this other one, and we'll cut it around the midpoint. So now if we hollow out the larger one with the smaller one, the larger one will become a bowl shape. It'll have a hollow in the middle. But I want to have this shape continue down horizontally, so I'm going to see if I can do this. Selection mask tool, rectangle tool, turn symmetry off. Did I select the whole thing? I did. I'm going to zoom in a bit, rectangle tool, front view, deselect. I'm going to deselect the bottom, very bottom of it. Oof. I have to increase the mesh first. No. I'm going to select the top of it. So now when I use the gizmo tool, I can drag the bottom of that shape straight down. And it doesn't matter how far down it goes because we can crop it later. Okay. Then we can clear that selection. I'll hide that one, and we're going to do the same thing with the internal sphere. Rectangle tool, we'll zoom in so we can see what we're doing. Hit the front button. Rectangle tool. Oh, I didn't increase the mesh like I did with the other one. We'll clear the selection and select it again. Hopefully this makes sense what I'm doing. This is like Procreate 102. Because this is sort of stuff I wish I had known when I started sculpting in this program. The idea of selecting things. We're definitely going to remesh this thing to lower the amount of memory required to define it. And I'm using the smooth tool around the interface between the sphere and the part we extended to smooth that out. We'll do the same thing here. We will remesh, lower mesh. We remeshed the circle and then scaled the circle down, and it had to add information to further explain, further define the larger shape we've created. So it pushes the mesh number up very high, increasing the amount of memory to define it. And this is a fairly simple shape. It shouldn't be that complicated. Okay, so we'll make both things visible. Now, I can select them both, and since the interior one is selected, let me do this. I'm going to clone both of those, just so I have backups. And now I'm going to remesh the two of them, keeping sharp edges. And now the one that's invisible should hollow out the one that's visible. And it has. Great. So this will become the basic shape of the helmet. And also we're going to use this to form the crossbars of that kind of roll cage for the helm. I think it's going to turn out to be a much simpler sculpt than I was worried. Part of the thinking is I still want these cleric. Marcos, hello! I gave you a shout out earlier because you inspired that the card box solution, which I don't know if you saw over on the Death Dealing Kickstarter. So if you go to the latest update for Death Dealing, the instructions for a box are there, and you can cut it out, fold it, and you'll have a box for your cards. So thank you. That was your idea. You are definitely mentioned. Excellent. I already saw an example of someone who had downloaded it. They bought 2 decks, so they had them both in boxes, which was pretty great to see that it happened so quickly. And a PayPal book order. Someone ordered Intoximancy. Bethany, thank you so much. You're awesome. Well, Marcus, I really appreciate it. All right, so we're going to look at this from the side. And we will... Let's create the roll cage up top first. So I'm going to clone this. Hide the second one. We'll use the trim tool. I'm going to save because I haven't saved this project yet, and I could see it felt like it was taking a little too long to think there. We are sculpting a tinfoil helm for the meta domain cleric project, which you can find out more about at prayershandbook.com. You can see how we're doing down there in the corner. I'll clone this again. I want this to be the band that goes around the brow. That's interesting. Oh, that's great. That's great. Excellent. Excellent. I think this is going to work just fine. Okay, trim tool again with the rectangle. You don't need symmetry at the moment. And I could do this with a cylinder. I think that worked, but I had both of them visible. We're going to center our pivot point. That puts it in the middle of the object and scale it up a little bit. Make sure perspective is off. Good. So this is the band, the one that goes around. Now this will be the side crossbars. I think the front crossbars, I want to use the larger shape. So I think everything we're doing here would probably work if you wanted to sculpt R2-D2 as well. Let's do this. We'll look at it from the front. We'll turn symmetry back on. And then when we use the trim tool from one of the sides, it should trim both sides for us, if I select the correct thing, which has been known to happen. Great. I'm winding that, and now I'm going to rotate it from above 90 degrees. How are we doing? Tell us what's next. The next one is going to be a collection of magic items, and it will be the idea is to get this book delivered as quickly as possible and in people's hands at the beginning of February. And so this is the plan for the next few months. Currently, I'm my big educational projects always take a hiatus over the holidays. I'm using this time to work on The Middle Age, my webcomic, which has not had an installment in a couple of months. More than maybe 3 months. I've worked on it. I was beating myself up over it. And I should be beating myself up over it because it's like it's the most acclaimed thing I've ever done. I've been in comics for 25 years, 30 years next year. I started self-publishing 30 years ago next year, and the things had some notoriety, some popularity. in as much as there was very little competition in the early world of webcomics, and I was co-owner of a online comic community starting in 1998. So again, there weren't a lot of online comic communities back then. So being a co-owner of that, kind of gave me a place to advertise my stuff, so people heard about it. It wasn't necessarily because the work itself had such inherent quality. It was just more like, hey, I can get the word out. But this other dumb thing I did, the Middle Age, and I mean dumb in the best possible sense, in the Monty Python sense of it, very dumb in the Ministry of Silly Walks kind of way. If I could toot my own horn by saying it's dumb. Eisner nominations, Ringo nominations, an NCS nomination, tons of readers, very successful Kickstarters. And this last act of it, I kind of set myself up for it being, I don't know, MCU big, One Piece big, like, cataclysmic and huge and gigantic. And it was like, it was like, oh, this is, and I kind of spun myself up in some way that I couldn't live up to what I was asking myself to do. And I got in my own way. And so it took me a while to realize that that's what I was doing. And I think any outsider would go, you're an idiot, which is exactly what I just said. I'm an idiot. So I am excited to get back to it. It pains me that it took me so long to realize that's what I was doing. I want to adjust this thing's opacity. And so, where was I going with all that? That should be translucent if I did this right. Nope, I had the wrong thing selected. I was getting in my own way. So now, dedicated to not be in my own way, the next few months are me catching up on the Middle Age. We've been hovering close to episode 300 this whole time. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to get that. We're going to have this conclusion. It is big, but it's. I'm asking more of me than anybody else is, and that's not. Hopefully, not making myself sound like an egotistical maniac. Hopefully it sounds like a self-deprecating maniac. And just, I never set out to make a great comic. I just set out to make a stupid comic, a fun comic. And I started to try to make it great. And I can't do that. And I think I feel better knowing my limitations. My many, many limitations. That's so interesting that I can't see through this object. Oh, I have solo selected. That'll do it. Okay, so we can see the other bands I have under there. And for some reason I don't have it as... I turned off my mat cap. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to slice this thing in a way that... Oh. You want to turn off symmetry. I want to slice it from the front first. I want this thing to be mullety. Where that bar that goes across the nose has a certain length in the front, or it just goes over the space like that, not about that far, but goes much longer in the back. So we're going to, looking at it from the right, we're going to use the trim tool. But I got in my own way with my own webcomic, and I am happier knowing that, okay, good, that worked. I was worried. Symmetry on. We'll attempt to slice it. That's what we wanted. And we will cheat slightly here by scaling it forward. That will let the metal have the appearance I was kind of hoping for in the sketch. Maybe it should appear thinner. All these pieces of metal should probably appear thinner. Okay. 1,000 levels of undo. Let's do this. We have that piece there. We're going to hollow that out further. Fortunately, I saved this center element, which we can clone, scale up a bit, and bring it down. So we'll use that to hollow out the metal a bit more. So the next few months are going to be focusing on the Middle Age and getting those episodes out at least weekly, and with a plan to do the next Kickstarter will be magic items with the Zine Quest in February. When that Kickstarter is done and those books are on their way to the printer, the PDFs are delivered, the additional goodies are already in production, that's when we'll launch the Kickstarter for the Middle Age Volume 3. And then when that's done, there'll be a 25th anniversary of my old science fiction series called Astounding Space Thrills. There might be another D&D book in the middle there. I've got an idea for Druids, but at that point, we're talking about May, which is very, very close to when the next version of Dungeons & Dragons will be out. And that will be interesting. Man, I shouldn't have clipped that just yet. Because I need a second one. We're gonna back up here a little bit. So that's the band. We're gonna clone that, turn it visible. That's hollow. We're gonna hollow this out more. This will give us that weird mullet I was talking about. So I'm trimming that down on the inside of it. I'm going to save, and I'm going to just cut this open to see how it looks. Much thinner. That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted for those front and side pieces. Great, great, great. Great, great, great. So that band can go away. This band we can clone, move up. Clone that again. Turn that one off. Turn that one off. And this one will be the front end. This will be the one that goes across the sides. But we're going to trim this from the front so we can take advantage of symmetry. But we were looking at it from the right, so that wasn't going to work. You'll have to look at it from the front, like I just said. I had a brain in my head. I don't know why I'm doing things twice. We're going to create one and then cut it for both. I will explain what I mean in a moment. So this band is the horizontal band. Perfect. So we'll take this, we'll clone this, we'll rotate it 90 degrees. And that will go underneath the headband, I think. No, it'll sit on, it can sit on top. Yeah. Trim tool, front view, symmetry off, we don't need it. Excellent. Excuse me. How's everybody doing? Okay, so that's kind of the roll cage we were talking about. Now I'm going to remesh these things just so they don't fall apart so easily. And I'm going to smooth them out. And the reason why I do that... Have I turned the microphone back up? Yes, I have. And the reason I remesh them, this strengthens them. A shape with a very low mesh will melt when you try to do things like smooth it out. I go through here now and hit that because you'll see what it does to the edge of the shape. It lets it catch the light a bit better. It lightly smooths out the edge and kind of bevels it. And that bevel will catch a little bit more light. Oof. I'm going to strengthen that some more. And I'm going to... I had symmetry on, so I think that was doing both sides. It was like doubling the effect, and I didn't want that. Smoothing it out. Now, normally I'd be like, well, I'm only going to be screen capping one angle for anyone to see. But as now that I have a 3D printer, I've been printing some of these helmets out. So maybe I should put a little more care into the sculpt. I sculpted so many things that I thought, oh, no, I'll never print this thing out. Or this is never meant to be, made real. And then a little while later I'm printing it out and wishing I had thought it through from the beginning. But the Magic Item book is the next one I'll be doing. That will launch for Zine Quest on Kickstarter in February. I think it might be multiple books. JRD over on YouTube. So good to see you. I hope you're having a lovely time. I hope you're well. You may have seen that Pencil to Pencil will be on a brief hiatus, I hope, while the maestro of mark making, Mr. Mike Manley, is recovering. He has some surgery coming up, and I'm hoping that he will be right as rain soon enough. But there will be an episode of Jamar's Coffee Break this evening, if I understand correctly. I hope to pop in there. That headband is still pretty thick, but I don't hate it. But we're gonna... Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this kind of tinfoil section in the middle here. And I think for that I want to start with an icosahedron. Just because it already gets the kind of... No, tell you what, let's use a sphere. I put the icosahedron in there like immediately. Nope. Let's try reducing the post subdivision. I'm going to sip some coffee. I saw the surgery news, but no update since. I may text you later. That sounds good. I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I have not been. Pardon me a moment. Pardon me. I haven't heard any news about the surgery from Mike, but perhaps we'll have another update this evening, or Jamar will have an update this evening on how he's doing, how Mike is doing. Fingers crossed. But I hope you're well. The new Kickstarter is currently cooking. Down at the bottom there, we have, I don't think I need symmetry on. Maybe I do. Let me clone this. Let me name it first. Foil. Well, this seems to be working. I set the math of this thing, the number of polygons of this thing is extremely low. So as I move things, it can only pretty much move along the mesh you see there. Like, if I drag a piece out of this, it can only move along that line. It's not... A wire view of it will show you the amount of detail that's going to define that center column. And you can see the mesh of that sphere in the middle is very limited. So this is going to hopefully let me approximate tinfoil a bit. I'm going to well, not corrugate it. I'm going to attempt to adjust it a bit more. It's been a bad end of the year for surgery among our friends and peers. A lot of surprise illnesses. Thankfully, we have the best healthcare system in the world. Am I right? Oh no, everyone's dead? Okay, well, I guess you guys can... At ease? Alright. No, it's just me. Frantically scanning art and getting year-end packs made by patrons. And because I was behind, it's 2/4 of packs. Oh my heavens! That's a lovely idea. I need to do something like that. My Patreon supporters have been very patient as I've been getting back to working on the Middle Age. Slowly getting back to it. Alright, I like this so far. We're going to clone it. The main thing is I just have to stop being so precious about it and just get back to work. I'm going to try remeshing this up a little bit. Not too much. Excellent. I wonder what it would do is I was trying to figure out what it would do if I said keep sharp edges. When it can't. Yeah, every time I adjust it slightly and say keep sharp edges, it's going to freak out a little bit. And hopefully look more like aluminum foil. Need to add some lights here. But if folks want to check out the new Kickstarter, it's at prayershandbook.com. Okay, so I did save the outside edge of this thing. I want to add the kind of... let's get back to our mat cap. I want to add the sides of the helmet here. There we are. There we are. Looking at it from the left, from the right, excuse me. I'm going to attempt to slice this thing by using the trim tool and the polygon tool. Let me undo this. I'm going to hit save right now. And now we're going to apply that effect. I don't know how far down the sides it should go. That's all right. We'll trim off the top of this thing. And we'll scale it down a little bit. Nope, I hate it. Okay. I'm going to remesh it. Give us some more to play with here. I appreciate it. I wasn't trying to push anybody into doing it. I'm just letting people know it's going to be a thing where I go for like, I'll stream for 2 hours and be like, oh, right, I should have mentioned the Kickstarter. But well, thank you, JRD. You're awesome. I have seen some people, that's an interesting question for people who've done Kickstarters. I've seen some folks that as the Kickstarter's running, they will email people along the way. Like I've gotten a note, oh, thanks for backing the campaign. It's like, I don't know. It seems like a lovely thing to do. I just don't know how they manage to budget their time for that. That seems like a lot. Ooh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to scale this down and then slide it forward. So it impacts with the, interacts with the back of the helmet. Maybe this side maybe this helmet's got to be just more, I should be trying to do straight up and down. Maybe we'll save. And I'm going to use the polygon tool to cut out the shape. I don't even think I need mirroring on at this point. Trim tool, polygon tool, turning symmetry off. Let's go hard lines, hard corners. I feel like it goes back too far. I mean, they've got good peripheral vision in their helmet, but that would make sense. I don't care about making sense. I want it to look cool. This isn't safety equipment. This is magic stuff. So we'll move it back a little bit, or move it forward a little bit. Excuse me. But there's really lousy news in the world of role-playing games in the last week, where Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro specifically, laid off 1,100 workers, just before Christmas. And a lot of them are coming from like the Dungeons and Dragons division, which apparently is doing really well. Apparently it's doing really well because of things, in part because of things like licensing, and Baldur's Gate did so well. But still, it's a successful division, and it's awful that they're, suffering the effects of the rest of the company. At the same time, while that's happening, you've got Matt Colville and MCDM having an incredibly successful Kickstarter. Tell you what, I'm gonna adjust this helmet. It's gonna follow the contours of like cheekbones. I think I like it better that way. MCDM has got their new role-playing game. It is a Dungeons and Dragons style game. It is a fantasy role-playing game. What is it? Tactical, cinematic, heroic, fantasy? Is the name of the game. I'm going to trim the front part of this separately, I think. No. Let's cancel this. We're going to look at this thing from a 3/4 view. I'm just going to draw in a diagram of where I want it to go, and we'll see if I get the drawing the way I like it. Where's the paint tool? There we go. Choose a red color. We'll select this shape. We'll turn symmetry on. Something like that. That was easy. Alright, so to do this, normally when you're going to cut through things with the trim tool, it goes right through the object. So for instance, let's say I select this cylinder that forms the bucket of the character's helmet. If I take the trim tool and the lasso tool and draw a circle, it cuts through this side and the other side, like a laser, right through the thing. So to cut out this asymmetrical shape, if we cut out the front of it, we'll also be cutting out the side, cutting out the back of the thing. And if we trim it from the side, from the right view, all our slices are going to be at a weird angle, so that let me show you. The slices are all like sheared in a very sharp angle, which is not going to work. So to make this the way I want, I'm going to have to use the split tool and the rectangle tool and just draw down the middle. What this will do is it'll split the cylinder that is going to form the bucket of the helmet into these two halves. So when I cut it, I'm only cutting this side. I'm only cutting the front of it. Now we're going to use the where are you? Trim tool and the polygon tool with symmetry on. We'll just draw these three shapes and we'll put them in place. That cuts both sides, and now the angle at which it's cut is much better. Get rid of that. It's very thin, but again, this is just an illustration. If we have to thicken it out, we'll figure out that when we get there. I'm going to merge those things back together again, the front and back of the helmet. And now I'm going to trim the side of this thing, possibly using the ellipse, the trim tool with the ellipse setting. this back element there. We will trim using the rectangle tool, making sure we're locked into the right hand side, and we'll do that. Now this part I'm going to bring down a little bit in size. And I'm going to fix the painting of that. There's that nub there I want to fix. And I'm going to save. For some, Kickstarter is their only income, so they make time to reach out. Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. I think they'll. I think, yeah, I think if you're dedicated that way, if that's it, if that's the only project, and I think also if you have like a couple of hundred backers, it might be easier depending on the speed at which they roll in. It's weird that there's a different kinds of Kickstarter. I don't know. Levels is the wrong word. It feels analogous, but not right. But there's the kind of scrappy, just get off the ground Kickstarter, where they don't do things like trying to network with other Kickstarter campaigns. Hey, will you promote mine if I promote yours? That sort of thing, which I do. I tend to do a lot of that. I was just reached out by someone I had done that with in the past. They're a cartoonist, and they do comics and graphic novels based on their characters. And I'm sorry, they do role-playing games based on their comic characters. And so very similar to what I do with the Middle Age. This is set in the world of the Middle Age, and this kind of world building outside of things. Charity says on YouTube says, I only had about 50 or so each campaign, so thank folks. That's great. I know that also if you have the division of labor, if it's a team of people, I know a couple of Kickstarters that are bigger than the Kickstarters I run, and the writer of that series sends a note to each backer. It's a really nice thing. When I mail the package out, I put a note into each one that's personalized, and hand signed, things like that. I feel like that's what I can do. And also, I don't even know how many people actually read the messages that they get over on Kickstarter. I'll send stuff like, hey, have you filled out your survey? I'd like to send you your stuff, and I never hear back from people. I'm going to cheat and just smush this forward here. I don't hate it. I kind of wish the helmet had some trim around the edge here. I'm going to see if I can manually add that with the tube tool and see how it turns out. Join me, won't you? So the tube tool, the curve tool, the snap distance is 0%. I didn't realize how important that is. When you snap on this and you drag these points along the shape, they will ride the surface of whatever it is your line is on. So like you see it turn that corner, it will actually bend back in space to ride on top of the surface that the line that we're sketching in is on. And now what I do is I keep adding points to it and dragging them out because I can't draw from every angle, so I have to rotate the thing and then move this thing along. And I think we're going to use a function that's pretty awesome in this program that kind of came in later. Make that a straight line. I'll show you all what I'm talking about in a moment. I think you'll only align to the visible objects. So if I turned everything else invisible, turned everything else off, then you won't see the other parts of the helmet. And this thing won't accidentally snap to one of those points. Okay, so I'm going to increase the division X. That'll smooth the thing out. Then I'm going to go to radius, and I'm going to thin out the ends of these where they will overlap. The idea is I'm going to mirror this shape to both sides. And so I want these parts to taper a little bit, so where they overlap, they kind of dovetail together a little bit. Now I want to try one more thing, which I rarely do when working with these tubes, is something they've added called profile. I don't know if it will let me do that. So you can draw the shape that it that the tube is. I'm not sure if it's going to work or if I should even bother with it. No, I want to stick with the rounded shape we had before. That's fine. Alright, so I will validate that shape. I will clone it. And I'm going to mirror it, not local, but world, right to left. So, but before I do that, let me delete that other duplicate. I'm going to smooth out some of these pieces before I mirror them on both sides and have two problems to deal with. Yeah, I have a bunch of friends who are trying other crowdfunding platforms. BackerKit and Crowdfunder and Zoop with mixed results. My thinking is at the moment is a lot of folks who are doing crowdfunding on other platforms are necessarily doing that because Kickstarter wasn't doing it for them. Whatever it is about Kickstarter is that they would try Kickstarter. Kickstarter wasn't clicking. Something about Kickstarter system, Kickstarter's community, and they want to try a different one. Which makes a lot of sense because you can either, if your Kickstarter doesn't do what you want, it's weird because you can be in limbo. If your Kickstarter is budgeted so that if we hit our goal, it will just be enough to make this project happen, and you do that, you're kind of not in a great spot because yes, the campaign was successful, but not in a way that really helped bolster you for the next leg of your creative journey, right? Like you want to do better than your goal, because the goal is, if you've budgeted correctly and if you're honest about what your goal is just what you need to make it work. When I set my goal, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to make a miniature, and the miniature has a setup fee of $400 just to get the sculpt made before they pour any amount of resin. Just to get the master mold made is $400, factoring that cost in, saying if I'm not printing 100 of these books, this is not going to make sense at all because I'll be paying $20 a copy, and if I'm selling for $25, it won't work. So basically, you do all this math to figure out, okay, if I want my goal to be, with my recent Kickstarter, $3,000, knowing that the credit card companies and Kickstarter take 10%, right? They're going to take $300. So when someone sets their goal like me of 3,000, what we're saying is our goal is really 2,700. Right? So we're factoring all those things in. And knowing full well that total, that $8,088, includes postage. So if someone pledges $100 and it's $20 in postage, you'll see, hey, a pledge of $120. And most people who are donating and backing Kickstarters don't think about that. And then you think about the guys who do like $2 million Kickstarters. Matt Colville's project is probably at $3 million by now. Knowing that that's going to be $300,000 in fees. That 10% in fees. A life-changing amount of money in fees. It's amazing. It's insane. Okay, so that's flipped. That's flipped. Do the other pieces need these bits of trim? I think the cage doesn't, but I think the headband might. Oh. Oh. It's magic. Oh, for the love of. Hello. Well, thank you so much. Subscribe. I think that's over on the YouTubes. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. Not the audio that I'm used to seeing this thing trigger. I must have misclicked something somewhere. But I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. So I'm going to use the curve tool. And so the next few months will be working on the Prayer's Handbook, my next Dungeons and Dragons compatible role-playing game supplement. That's a lot of words. And yeah, I don't hate that. And then I'll also be working on the Middle Age. So while I have this time before the next gig starts, I just had a call last week with a potential new client, and that might kick off in February. I still do my web design work. I'm still helping other clients all the time. I maintain a number of websites for people. They had press releases that went out yesterday. I helped them with that. I helped them with their mailing lists and stuff like that. Those gigs aren't, they pay a couple of bills. My focus is on my own personal creative stuff, on my own nonsense. But this coming year will be the Middle Age. It'll be a 25th anniversary collection of Astounding Space Thrills. It will be a sculpture of Argosy Smith, the hero of Astounding Space Thrills. I think the people who like that comic series will really want that. I really want it. I want it on a shelf behind me. And since I've gotten pretty good at sculpting, and I can now print pieces. This is one of the latest prints I made. This is an Intoximancer based on my 5e subclass book. I sculpted this here on the channel and then printed it off of my 3D printer right there. Let me increase the Division X of this. I still don't do resin printing. I don't know if I'll get into resin printing. I find that unlikely. I know people who swear by it. Let me undo this a little bit. What I didn't do here was that bit where I thin one of those lines out just so it smooths out the surface before I mesh it all together. Because when I validate it and then remesh it, it takes basically two pieces of the string and fuses those ends together so it becomes a single sort of donut shape, a single hair tie, if you will. And you can see where those two areas have fused because it creates this kind of distortion. So I remesh it again to strengthen the area, and then I try to smooth it out. If I don't remesh it again and I try to smooth it out, the whole thing just kind of evaporates like I put a heat gun on a piece of wax. I'm confused. What am I looking at? Moose. I don't know what you're looking at, but if you're looking at the screen at this moment, you're looking at the a tinfoil helm. This is a magic item in the Prayer's Handbook. I didn't want it to be a tinfoil hat. I thought this is Dungeons and Dragons. It should be more impressive than that. And more stupid. So not boobs or dongs or buttholes. The new Twitch confuses me. I saw that story today and I'm like, what? Wait, what? No, wait, what? No. So apparently the story is that there is a Twitch person who has decided to game the system, that the system was no nudity or something like that. So they're not nude, except for the part you can see. So they crop in tightly at like the shoulders, and if I were more buxom, this effect would be clearer. And the idea would be that you just it's cut to Dennis Reynolds. It's the implication. It's the implication that the person may in fact not be enclothed, and so the camera crops right here, and you just see the young lady's shoulders and clavicle, and that was enough to confuse people. It certainly confused Twitch's algorithm. And that person was banned, and they have since been unbanned? I don't know. I get the sense, I don't want to sell myself short here, but I get the sense that I have a different demographic. It also makes me wonder, what's anyone doing watching my channel? Oh wait, we got another Kickstarter backer. Longspeak. Thank you so much. The fact that those channels exist and people are still here, that's lovely. Or now that I've told you about it, I understand if you all want to go check those out. So I think there's a thing which is, if capitalism weren't a thing, would you still be doing what you're doing? You might be doing it differently, right? Like, I wouldn't have a Kickstarter going right now. But if you didn't have the pressures of making money, would you do things the way you're doing? And I think some of the people who are doing that... oh my goodness, another Kickstarter notification. Oh, someone's commented. Cool. I would, if you're innocent, don't look at the other art streams currently on. Really? Well, good for them. Whatever floats people's boat. Life is too short. Have fun. I don't know if I need to put, like, I think anything else I put on here is just going to cover up the tinfoil. And we don't want that. So these other pieces have to be metal. We're going to make this a dark metal. Let me get some more lights in here, because I can't see a damn thing. let's try this. We're going to save. I'm going to import, I'm going to add to the scene the other helmet I've created. Because what that does is it brings in the lights and cameras that I've had for the other piece, right? So I'll take those elements and move them off to the side. I will take our pieces here and I will scale those up. Roughly to match the scale of the other helmet. That way the lights are roughly, if this thing is roughly where the other one was, it should be nice. Save me some steps here. You can see in the upper left corner, there's some numbers. In the very upper left, and there's 3 rows of numbers. They are dark, dark red, which means we are pushing the memory limit of this. With this document, we're making my iPad do way more than it wants to. So, I feel like we're far enough along where I can delete a lot of the hidden pieces and a lot of the things we just imported. So anything hidden, I'm going to get rid of it. And then I'm going to hit save. Now this usually doesn't immediately... Oh no, it did. In this case it did. Those numbers are now a nice light gray. This is far less complicated an object than it was a moment ago. Oh man. No, we can do this. We don't need... I was going to sample some colors from that other object. I like this because it's a matte finish. So there's some contrast between it and the tin foil. Oh, I didn't fuse those together. That's interesting. Now this one, I'm going to darken. I'm also going to increase the environmental lighting so that there's more light in the environment. And I need to add some rivets to the helmet. How about this too? I'm going to add to the scene an icosahedron, which is a D20. I'm going to paint it that, not the tinfoil color, but the other color. I think part of the helmet needs to be less shiny to make the tin foil more shiny. I'm drinking a little more coffee here. Come on. I've got a comment over on the Kickstarter here. Gotta figure out what that is about. I'll just stay on top of these things. And if anyone is interested, we're really close to the... Oh, that's very nice. Someone says, first time backing, but the fourth wall breaking stuff looks hilarious. That's awesome. That's what I was hoping for. That's exactly what I was hoping for. I want it to be funny. I want it to be silly and give people the tools to have fun at the table and not break the game. Because I still think like you can have... I don't know if Deadpool would have ruined Avengers Endgame. I don't know if during the fight, at any point in Endgame, if Deadpool looked at the camera, if it would have ruined the movie. Right? I don't know how a fourth wall bending character... I don't say fourth wall breaking, I say bending. Because I think that and this is a page in the book. It's an essay, kind of. God, I don't want to call it an essay. That's not, no one wants to read an essay. It is a paragraph or two. Can I call it that? Which talks about balance. Because the whole idea is your character might think that they have a player who's playing Dungeons and Dragons, who's playing something legally distinct from Dungeons and Dragons. They might think they're playing a tabletop role-playing game, and the gods are sitting around a table rolling dice and controlling everyone's destiny, and there's an adversary known as the GM. Your character might think that, but the dungeon master at the table, the game master at that table, determines what the metaphysics of the universe are. In the game that they're playing, there is no table, there is no player, there is no any of that. That's just in the head of the character. Your character could imagine that they're playing Gangbusters or Traveler. It could be any weird thing. The idea of, Abed on Community acts like they're on a TV show. He doesn't say what TV show they're on. Gosh, you really need to read the Discworld series. I know, Marcus. I know. That's my reward for finishing the Middle Ages. I will get to read The Color of Magic. Gods playing a game is not from there. Well, I quote Shakespeare, like on the inside front cover. I did this with the Death Dealing Rogues. I have a quote on the inside front cover that I mangle. In this one, it is well, all the world's a stage, and we are merely players. And it's credited to some bard. I feel like there's a lot of silliness. There's a lot of fun. Sam, nice to see you. Well, Marcus, that's about the nicest thing anybody could say. That it's not from Discworld. I was not aware of Discworld until after Mr. Pratchett had passed away. I was brought to my attention by a writer named Emily Whitten. I knew of Terry Pratchett. There's a ton of writers who I know of and think, I should get around to reading them. But I didn't know how much I'm playing in his field. I'm playing, I feel like I'm playing in his lawn. Like, he's been doing that. My whole thing was, when I started the Middle Age, was like, I wanted to do for fantasy what Douglas Adams did for sci-fi. Or at least approach fantasy the way I felt Douglas Adams approached sci-fi. I'm not going to do for it what Douglas Adams did. I'm just some guy working in his second bedroom. I'm not going to have any impact. So to do for it, to approach it the way he might, or the way he approached the noir genre with Dirk Gently. Apparently it's been done, and it's been done expertly, and apparently the entire United Kingdom is in love with it, and he's a national treasure, and he's worked with Neil Gaiman. I knew that part. I knew as a person who collaborated with Neil Gaiman, but that's as much as I knew. Have I read Good Omens? No. And I will read it before I read Colleen Doran's adaptation. I have backed Colleen Doran's Kickstarter for the adaptation of it. I know, Marcus. I know. It's the thing that I reward when I am done with the Middle Age, the third volume. My reward is going to be to read Pratchett. When I was in college, I had a comic. I was going to say web comic. We didn't have a web when I was in college. I had a comic in the school newspaper. And at the bottom of each one of the installments, I had a little bit about the universe. A little description. Kind of almost like a Hitchhiker's Guide entry. For how the universe is constructed. And one of my thoughts was that one way invisibility would work would be you'd paint something a color that nobody could see. And I thought, oh, look at me, I'm clever. So I'm reading like I'm like 5 pages into The Color of Magic, and he's already there. He's been doing this stuff for ages. I mean, I mine was off of my own little, unaware world. In 1988, I was doing that. I was writing my webcomic, or my newspaper comic strip, and but he's been doing this. Not only was he doing it, he was convincing people to read it. The school newspaper stuff I was doing, nobody, they were reading it for the personal ads or to find out what was happening at the school theater. No one cared about the comics. Certainly not mine. But there is a ton that I want to read of Terry Pratchett's, and I'm very excited for it. And I think once I finish The Middle Age, I'll actually deserve it. But it pains me that I never got to meet the man. Why is that off center? Huh. Something's amiss. It was off center. Is the whole thing off center? I'm going to join those together. Okay, that's forward because I scale things forward a little bit. Huh. All right, I'm going to undo some of this alignment. We're working off center. That's fine. I can live with that. I will indeed, Marcus. I've watched both seasons of Good Omens, and I love it. I've watched them. I didn't know where you could go after season 1 of Good Omens, and I loved season 2. I mean, it's so its own thing. I'm also a fan of how much they play with Judeo-Christian faith. I mean, that's almost like almost taboo topic nowadays. Like, you don't dare. People are so uptight. But they're like, no, we're having fun. This is our story. And they're using it. They use the faith almost as a pop culture reference. Here's a reference you'll all get. And the thing is, it would be easy for that to be so cynical, right? It's easy to. It's just, I find that most things is like, it's just easy to be cynical, and they're not. It might be blasphemous, but it's not. It's not cynical. It's, if anything, it's loving. Which is it's big. I'm a big fan. All right, so in pure laziness, I will join those spheres together. I will clone them, and I will mirror them And because things are off-center in the universe, I have to scooch them over a little bit. Very weird that things went off-center, but so be it. I don't know if it had something to do with when I imported the lighting from the other environment. But here we are. Let's see some of these camera angles we imported. Let's see if any of these are good. Now the angle for this needs to be higher so we can see the tinfoil. The focus has got to be the tinfoil. Not only that, but also the distance. I have to drag this down a little bit. There's like a slight, there was a slight bevel, not bevel. I think the tinfoil folded under itself a little bit there and created a dark line separating those pieces. Now I'll paint a dark line in when it comes time to paint this thing, but I don't want it to be there accidentally. I'm moving these to create more space at the little more distance. Trying to make that tinfoil seem more tinfoily if I can. Tinfoily is a word, right? I'm thinking about decoration for the outside of the thing. Also, let me just try something here. Let me see this. I'm going to save. So something I've been watching lately, I recommend a lot of people check it out because it's quite entertaining. Is that better? Is that better for the helm if it's not? If I get rid of the sides of it, does that look more tinfoily and silly? Versus the whole thing. I have to adjust these lights. My blue highlights all in the wrong place. I kind of think maybe it doesn't need the bottom part. Huh. Alright, one more idea to try. One more idea to try here. Okay. We're going to create a lathe. We're going to create this kind of a sweeping shape. Imagine it's like going to be a chainmail headpiece that kind of drags down from the helmet. Chainmail's almost impossible to sculpt, but I created a bump map pattern that I can use to emboss that onto something, and it might do the trick for purposes of an illustration. I've painted chainmail. It's laborious, but let's try this. Let's try this. Okay, so we have our backup other helm if we want to. Let me just put those together or join those together. So we have those as a separate piece if we need them. But we're going to go to the front view here. Oh, we had perspective on too. That's unexpected. I brought that camera in from another document, and it was kind of weird. Okay. Lathe. There you is. And the curve tool. Normally there's a line that appears somewhere in the environment that tells me where this thing is. There he is. Don't want that. So we're going to draw. Yeah, sure. Let's say. We're just making this up. This entire channel is just what? We'll try it. And then we'll clone this lathe. Oof. Oof. I'm going to undo that clone because I think its center point, its pivot point is way off. So I clone it. I need the pivot point to be center, so when I scale it down and have the interior bit done, so that I can turn it invisible, select it with the other one, and voxel remesh, keeping sharp edges. This will hollow out our little ghostly shell there. Could be thinner. Maybe that's too thin, especially given that I want to emboss it. Okay. Invisible, select, voxel remesh. The program I'm using, I haven't mentioned, it's called Nomad Sculpt. I love it. It is a $15 program. I can't say enough good things about it. I would not be a sculptor. I'm a cartoonist. I'm not a sculptor. I just am winging it, and so far, so good. Come on. Stop it with your perspective. We want orthographic. Orthographic just means no perspective, a lot easier to sculpt and get things where you want them to go. I hate that everything's off center. Alright. Let's turn off that. There. How we doing? The helmet is giving you a migraine. That's about right. All right, so this is our... This will be chainmail that drapes down. So we're going to trim off the top of it, not square, rectangle, cutting off the top. It will fall down from the side here. We will use the trim tool and the lasso tool. We're just going to wing it. Hate it. You can see it when it cut, it left a metallic look to it because that's the color we have here, and that's I've currently set that to painting. The painting is stay pinned, turn off. Why will it not let me click that button? Oh, it vexes me. Okay. So, similar problem that we had before, where I have to trim the top of this thing off, right? Then we have to split the thing in half so that I can cut the front of it without affecting the back of it. Choose a nice angle, lasso, well, polygon tool, I mean. Oh heavens, we want the split tool, not for this part. Symmetry on. And now this will cut into the front of the helmet, cut into that drapery, and symmetry is on. If the correct thing is selected, there we go. Could be a little better. I'm going to move the hat over a little bit. Sweet. Now let's go back one step. I might cut these out manually. Alright, so now I'm going to fuse the split back together again. Nice and high, about as high as you scroll forward, that number gets redder and redder and redder to it's basically saying you're asking too much. You can see the voxel remesh right now, it's still thinking about it. And I'm using an iPad Pro 4. Cave, I'm disappointed you're not shirtless, Steve. A friend of yours, Cave, said ordered copies of the Middle Age Volume 1 and 2. And in their note said, Cave recommended me. Thank you so much. I said this before, any convention, I want you at the table. You sell more books than I do. But they said apparently you told them I would include a nude sketch. So what I told them was I included an illustration of Sir Quimp. He's nude from the neck up. That's about as best I can do. All right, so here's the drapery on the side here. We will... Ooh, this is what I want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. I'm going to sample that color there. Come on, deselect. Why can I not sample any colors? Oh, because I'm not in Procreate. Everything I was trying to do right now would have made perfect sense if we were in Procreate, but I am not. I am in Nomad Sculpt, and so I have a tiny brain, and I shouldn't be allowed to take care of myself. All right, so we will go to Matte Cap so I can see what I'm doing. Stamp tool. We want this alpha, the chainmail pattern I made, which is somewhere in here. I think it's that. We want the fall off to be nice and low and flat. We want it to be front-facing vertex only. We don't want to affect the inside. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. All right, all right. I'm going to clone this so I don't mess it up too bad. So I have a backup, a safety net. I'm going to save and I'm going to drink some coffee because we could just cause the whole program to quit. Yeah, we were talking about how Twitch has decided to relax their rules. I figured this is what you've been waiting for. Finally. Everyone gather round. You turn mirror symmetry back on. Let's go back to lit. Let's paint. Let's remesh again. Oh, it's really thinking about it. And I'm going to try to smooth out this surface. You can see those striations, those kind of chunky, almost pixelated bits. I'm just using the smooth brush and trying to even all that out if I can. That way when we emboss onto this, hopefully it's starting with a smoother surface. If this works. In theory, I don't hate it. So I made this texture. I can go back into Photoshop and make it much, much larger so it would cover the whole area without these links becoming quite so distorted. But the pattern doesn't repeat. Normally, a lot of these patterns I'll make a bump map. I'll illustrate it in Procreate. I'll have the edges fade out. Like it will go, I'll just take a big watercolor brush and put black all around the edges. So you've got this you've got this design in the middle, it fades out. That way when I emboss it onto something, it's kind of the embossing effects vanish at the edges. It's really good for layering it in when the pattern can be irregular. Bricks, or the bark of a tree, scales of a dragon. The pattern doesn't matter as much because you're going to kind of loosely patchwork it all together and it looks just fine. It actually looks better. And then if it were some sort of rigid pattern you were trying to apply to the whole thing, like Zipatone. In this case, I have to... And Zipatone, if you don't know what that is, that's what Google's for. But in this case, I feel like I need a tighter just a slightly tighter pattern. And I don't think there's any way for me to link these two patterns together without it just looking like butt. And not a good Twitch audience grabbing butt. Let me shorten this distance a little bit here, see if that works. Yeah, so Twitch relaxed its rules. I don't know why. I don't know. I think I also heard someone said that Twitch is losing its audience. So, time for me to make my move. Strike while the iron's hot. I don't know what that means. If Twitch is less popular because people are using other platforms, or because watching people play video games is a fad, and only kind of depends if the people like the video game. I don't know. What do I know? Alright, let's try this again with a shorter area here with a stamp tool. This is the tinfoil helm that Merry or Pippin would wear. Let's go the other way. Basically, I wanted this to be, okay, about there. Nope, gotta go lower. Alright, one more thing. I'm going to increase the intensity of this thing. So hopefully it will bring out more texture. It's like getting granular in the middle there. That's okay. What else can we do? Let's try this. We're going to save it. So if I'm about to crash my iPad, we're going to turn off. We're going to turn front-facing vertex back on. It's possible that as I was embossing it, I was debossing the other side, and that's what was causing the pixelization. We're also going to increase the potency of the effect. Wow. I think it's eating right through the shape. Unexpected. Cool, but not what I was going for. And God forbid anyone ever tried to print it. Okay, I'm going to lower the intensity a lot more. Lower and flatter, less intense. Boy, I thought I had the center of this thing locked. A little higher. I'm trying to get it so that just as it hits the top of that ring, that also hits the bottom of the shape. If I get those both to line up, that means it'll be as large as it can be without... You should have seen me trying to emboss Sir Quimp's logo on his uniform in the very first weeks I learned this program. I had no idea what I was doing. Trial and error again and again and again. Now, let's try. That's the tube lathe. Hide. Everything else. I'm going to cut this right down the... I'm going to split this right down the middle. Rectangle. Oof, it took a while to think about what it was doing there. That was spooky. I thought it was about to crash. On that note, we'll save it again. Looks like a Stargate replicator. It did, where it was corroding. I mean, I don't get that reference. I'm too cool. I'm too cool to know what a Stargate replicator is. I've been rewatching Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it was thinking it was being symmetrical. Silly computer. And that first season set phasers to oof. I was watching those when they came out, and I remember going, okay, it's not great, but you know, it's Star Trek. And then I'm at the middle of season 1 where it starts to pick up, and we start having a few episodes where like, okay, pretty good. Lore is getting introduced, and the weird conspiracy before, I don't know which franchise cooked up section 42, whatever the spy branch of the Federation, the Black Ops. That felt like, are we sure Gene Roddenberry's dead? Yes, he's dead. Cool, I have this script. I read all those stories about the early seasons where Roddenberry's rule was that, you know, you can't have personal conflict on Star Trek because everyone gets along. Doesn't give the ship's counselor much to do, but that was my feeling about watching Star Trek Discovery. I felt like that whole show was designed just to explain why ships have counselors. If the helmsman could stop crying for a moment, perhaps we could visit a strange new world, perhaps? And I think sometimes people are like, yeah, well, why make fun of Star Trek Discovery? The original series wasn't all that good. I'm like, I know. I'm not saying it was. I put it to you that two things can be bad. Did you get to the planet? I did. I did. I did. I did. It's You know what bothered me? Politics. They had politics in there. Those woke 90s. I'll take everything. I'll take every bad thing Discovery did over Spock's brain. Okay. All right. All right. All right. I don't hate that. I think that's better. I think that's kind of cool. I didn't know what I was doing. Uh, uh, what is brain? Load up the chainmail texture on its own and do what you're doing right now. Then save it. That way you won't have to do it again. Load up the chainmail texture on its own. Yeah, clean the edge of it. Yeah, I think I have to create a larger sheet of chainmail, because it wasn't like just I couldn't take a photograph of chainmail. I had to go in and create a bump map. So basically, the lighter parts pop closer. I did this with scale mail as well for the front of the grognard, and it worked out really well. All right, I'm going to clone that part we just did. It's going to kill me because everything's not centered in the universe. Ugh. So, this weird misalignment. It'll be fine. It's fine. It's just for painting anyway. Then on the inside of that, just for reference, I'm going to save again, and I'm going to emboss a bit of chainmail on the inside, and then we're going to light this thing, and then hopefully I've got the basic lights in there from the other helmet we done. I imported those lights. I also want to delete the other camera angles too. Those are all messed up, and they kept turning perspective on. I think that's why my stuff's off center. But I'm going to emboss on here. But I hope everyone's having a good day. I really appreciate you being here. I'm not saying it keeps me from going insane, but it doesn't hurt. Smooth it out. Smoothing it out kind of really helps bring out the reference a bit. Okay. Sweet. And then the rest of this will get fixed when we paint it, because most of the stuff this is just reference for painting. I'm never going to 3D print this thing. I think that looks like tinfoil. I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like I can darken the other metal here. That'll make the tinfoil look a little better. All right, let's get this. We'll pick a camera angle I don't hate. I feel like I like that one. Then I'm going to delete some of these other lathes we've had in there just because they're taking up space. I see that my memory usage is going crazy. I'm also going to save and decimate these. I know it's not a true decimation. Shane, if you're there, I know. But it does reduce the amount of memory usage by a lot. It goes from 830K to half that, 415. So it half-summates it. I think that's the technical term. That's way better than the metallic. Oh, I deleted the other helm. Oh, no takebacks. I had this other one that was all molded and everything. Nah, screw it. This is way better. All right, let's get some lighting in here. But I get to sip some coffee, right? Don't I? Folks who are here on YouTube, thank you for being here. Folks who are here on Twitch, I really appreciate it. I stream normally Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. East Coast time. My name is Steve Conley. I write and draw webcomics. If you check out middleagecomic.com, if you're on Twitch and YouTube, you should see information in the doobly-doo. I also make role-playing game stuff. Specifically, the new thing is called The Prayer's Handbook for the Meta Domain Cleric. It's for clerics who think this all might be a game. The campaign started a week ago, and we're at $8,000. Thank you to the 235 backers. You were delightful. Incredibly pretty people. And we have 21 days to go. It will end in 3 weeks in the new year on a Thursday night at 10:15 p.m. And I think we'll be live streaming for that. Currently, I'm illustrating some of the magic items in the book. The Meta Domain Cleric has a bunch of things in it which are very much kind of like the Meta Domain Cleric's a little bit like JRD. So good to see you. Hopefully, I'll see you in the coffee break, in Jamar's coffee break this evening. Also, people should check out Cave Geek art. Cave Geek has a channel here on Twitch. Stargate, minis, game playing. Occasionally he will indulge us by doing some leather crafting. Cave is amazing at that. He's produced some amazing leather sculpted maps. Just off the charts great. And he promises partial nudity. I've seen both his earlobes. No joke. It is wild. But I create for the Meta Domain Cleric. It's clerics like Deadpool, like Neo from the Matrix. One of the abilities of the cleric, and I don't think I talked about this. Currently, I think level 6. David, how are you? Currently at level 6. The Meta Domain Cleric's main stat is Wisdom in 5th edition games, whether that's Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or Tales of the Valiant or any of the other spin-offs. And I suspect there will be many. That at level 6, they are able to periodically use their Wisdom as their armor class. So if they have an 18 Wisdom, they will have an 18 armor class. Normally, cloth casters are particularly squishy and easy to hit. The idea of this is a bit like bullet time in the Matrix, that the cleric and their understanding of reality and their particular slant on reality allows them to see how things are moving in a very particular way, and their wisdom is what lets them avoid damage, not so much how armored they are or how dexterous they are, but their insights. And I think that's a really cool ability. I don't know if any class, Telemont might jump in and tell me otherwise. Welcome back, David. I don't know if I said that. But I don't know of another class that lets them use a different stat as their armor class. So I think it's a cool function. It's simple. So many of the things that I've got in this game, like I want to do it, but I'm like, oh no, this requires a formula. Okay, we have to add this number, then subtract that number and this number, because if it gets to be the character's turn, and they have to break out a slide rule or a calculator, I'm like, no. It shouldn't require a macro to do the basics. So David, this is how it's come along. It had these very hard sides to it, and it was fine. But then I thought, what about that kind of drapery of the Wally Wood, Hal Foster armor that people have? So I embossed chainmail texture when I made a bump map I had made. It doesn't go all the way. Cut it a little bit, and we're just going to light it now. And so far, so good. I kind of like it. I think I picked a pretty good camera angle here, which will let me see some of the gap between that roll cage and the tin foil itself. Can you balloon it more on top? I think I can. I wouldn't be surprised why. I don't know why I couldn't. But I was going to try to light it at this point and see if I can get the lights where I want them to be. Currently, they're not where I want them to be. I want the blue light, my usual. I want a warm light on one side, goes to shadow, nice 3/4 lighting with rim lighting of blue. And casting some shadows. I don't think the lights here are casting any shadows. And we have 4 lights. I got a green light. I don't know where that guy comes from. Oh, right, because that was for the cover. The cover has got the helmet was sitting in some grass by a tree, and I wanted green light coming up from the grass, lighting things, and a hint of that permeating all the other colors. Permeating? So we'll change this to a nice warm gold color. It is a spotlight. Maybe increase the intensity a bit. Not that much. We want the blue lights to be on the other side. Oof, it's in the wrong neighborhood entirely. Or is it too late for that? I don't think it's too late. I think I could do that. I can certainly try it. Another yellow light. I don't know where you are. You're way in the wrong neighborhood as well. I'm going to try getting rid of all the environmental lighting. What if you are not a spotlight, but you are a directional light? That's interesting. It's not... I like this lighting a lot. I feel like it's losing a lot of... I feel like the gold, the angle for that is wrong, though. That's good. I think my other light that's screwy. So I use this kind of low poly sphere. Started for the tinfoil. I started with a sphere, and what I did was I lowered the poly count so much that it started to become like this buckyball, kind of very sharp edged elements around the sphere, very low res. And then when I started, I could push and pull on it, and because it wasn't made up of a million facets, it only was made up of like a tinker toy. Very few elements could even move. Like there's, you pull on one piece and only one element would create this polygon that would kind of come off. That let me crinkle it in a way that you couldn't with a regular item inside this world, because normally it's fully malleable. Now there's all sorts of stuff I'm going to do with this chainmail once I get it into once I start painting, because I'm going to add more blue highlights. I'm going to create more hollows in there. I'm going to darken the interior of the helmet so you see a hint of the chainmail without it being so overpowering. But this is going to be a much bigger deal painting just to make this thing make any sense. I'm going to try turning on perspective and seeing if that... I think I like that. I think I'm going to like to have that. But to touch on what David was talking about, let's get our tinfoil here. I want to clone it. Solo. Holy cow, I don't even have shadows on. Was talking about making it more puffy, like it's almost like a little, like a turban in its shape, more pillowy, because it would be more like a Jiffy Pop effect. So I think I can bring the edges inside in a little bit here, and then poof out the top. I think it's so well formed at this point where I don't have to worry too much about of messing up the angles of the why can't I move that? Oh, because I have multiple foils. I was foiled. Um, as long as I don't try to smooth anything out or add more clay, it should keep the effect pretty well. I still like the idea of making it very clear that that cage is a different part of the helmet. That's closer to it without mucking up too much. Is this one line here I don't like? Try to fix it if I can. I'm going to bring my pen size down here. If it gets too mushy, I'll change it back. I want that to feel crinkly. Crinkly is a word. Post-processing off. The shadows that are created in post-processing are dithered, and they have this kind of pixelization, so that when you export this thing, it will import this weird pixelization. What I like about it is it forces you to paint over it, so you're not just using a 3D model. The weakness of using a 3D model is it looks like a 3D model. It's one of the reasons why I think that the Into the Spider-Verse looks so good, is because it doesn't... Yes, it's CGI, and you can see the hints all over the place that it is, but for so much of it, it doesn't look CGI. It looks better. You know, I don't think CGI belongs in a fantasy book. I just don't think it fits. That kind of crispness, those clean lines, that shininess, that perfection doesn't belong with elves and dwarves. So having to muck it up a little bit is a big deal, I think. All right, I think this is worth exporting. Oh boy, I really like that angle I had there for a second. I'm going to save this angle. Now I have to paint in a lot more blue, like that polyhedron that's at the top of the helm. I have to give that a much stronger blue highlight. Normally, I like the lights to be reversed. I want the blue to be kind of rim light from behind, not the way I currently have it. Let me see if I can... Fix is a strong word. No, I'd have to move all the lights. No, maybe we're fine with this one. I want the focus to be on the tinfoil. Cool. I think this is good. All right, everybody. I'm going to take oh my gosh. I was going to take my first break, and I'm like, oh, I've been at this for 2 hours and 45 minutes. The other element... so... We talked about this one. This is the tinfoil helm. The perks of this in D&D terms are advantage on concentration checks, which is a Constitution saving throw when you take damage. It is resistance to psychic damage, and you can't be contacted telepathically. Your mind can't be read. Your thoughts can't be detected. That sort of thing. So it's pretty powerful. It's got many things happening, but I think it all satisfies what we think of as a tinfoil hat. The other item is the Helm of the War Duck, which at present turns you into a duck for X number of rounds. Maybe 10 minutes, but the Helm of the War Duck would turn you into a duck. It is blessed by Wattlebottom, the Lord of all ducks. Originally it was going to have all sorts of other features, but turning you into a duck, way better. Way better. And then there is the mace, the polyhedral mace, which the thinking is right now is this. It is a +2 magic mace, all the time. So you get to hit people with a +2 mace. Sounds nice. X number of times a day, you activate it, and it gives you advantage on the roll, which increases basically gives you a much stronger chance of hitting the target. The larger die is used to hit. The second die is used to determine the random effect. So you roll 2 dice, you take the top die, the higher number of the 2 is your damage, and the second one is the bonus effect. That bonus effect is it increases as the points go up. Because, I mean, the idea is whatever happens on a 20 has to be great, because if you took the higher die roll and it was a 20, and the lower die roll is also a 20, the high improbability. And so if you roll 2 20s, the effect is devastating. So it should be fun. It should be fun. Ella says on YouTube, watching with my mom, very entertaining too. Oh, thank you very much, Ella. That's awesome. I appreciate you being here. Okay, so I think we have this illustrated, pretty well illustrated. I think we're probably just, if you're on Twitch, we're going to go raid somebody. We're going to call it there. I'm going to go get my dinner. I don't have Twitch up right now, but if anyone has a recommendation, I can't tell how many folks here are twitching with us. But I really appreciate you being here. Check out Cave Geek Art over on Twitch. He's awesome. Check out Pencil to Pencil, Pencil T.O. Pencil, on YouTube and on Facebook. Tonight, Jamar Nicholas will be streaming at 9 p.m. his coffee break. Jamar is awesome. And the Pencil to Pencil program, which I co-host, will be back in the new year. Mike has been under the weather, and fingers crossed he'll be great. But anyway, thank you all for being here. I am posting pictures and videos of the printing of some of these things I've sculpted over on Discord. Links in the doobly-doo. So I think we're just to end it there. Twitch is taking its sweet time to load. Thank you all so much for being here. Check out middleagecomic.com and prayershandbook.com, and I will see you all next week on Tuesday for sure. I don't know, as we get closer to the holidays and closer to the new year, I know I'll be traveling, so I'm not sure what my schedule will be, but I will know more next week. So click the bell, light the fires, all the stuff, jump through the hoops, and have a great weekend.